Hey everyone, Crystal Beast here. So it's been about a week since the last time I've said anything regarding an update about City Multiplayer Mod. Anyone who's been following the channel closely knows that I've been working pretty steadily at it, and we're getting very quick progress already. The ball is certainly starting to pick up speed. So let's start this off with what has actually been done in the last week. You all have put your faith in me. Have I proven it? So first thing first, completed things that are fully done. Uh, every single bull in Re-Edge fully works now. So Re-Edge is now no longer part of the testing scope. It works perfectly, which is really big progress because we went from none of Re-Edge working to the entire thing works, is tested, and we're done with it in a week. They're smoother crash handling. So CDMP is well known for having very big issues when booting into the game with crash handling. That's been mostly fixed. There is still crashes, obviously, because CDMP is very experimental in testing, but there have been very little crashes booting into CityMP, which is a huge win regarding just the history of CityMP. Anyone who's been following this project for a long time or been part of testing knows that's usually one of the big issues. The next thing, so I talked about death mechanics last week. I said it was something that was on the horizon. Well, it's mostly done. It's 90% done. It's called finished mechanic here because it's the majority of the code handling death is fully finished. As in when two players. So the way I'm handling death, I guess I should explain that first. The way I'm handling death is there are going to be both players need to be dead in order for death to occur. You can't really have one player die and then that player gets reset and the other player isn't reset. That would just be a mess. It'd just be stupid. This is co-op. This isn't anything else. So you both need to die in order for me to care and do anything programmatically. Maybe in the future, I'll introduce things like revive mechanics or downed mechanics, or I don't know. But for now, I think the idea of both players being in the death state is enough for the mod. And that's what we got in the finish mechanic. Finish mechanic basically means that both players need to be dead in order for anyone to die. So essentially, when you get really low HP, your screen will become borderline unusable, and you'll be very much dead in many practical ways. But as long as you escape and hit some heals, you'll be fine. But if both you and your teammate enter the Phoenix state, then you'll die. You'll notice on here that there is a bug in testing, and that's the black screen death bug. Basically, the way it is now, if both players do die, one player will have their screen turned completely pitch black, and it won't kill them, while the other player will be killed. That's a bug. Both players are meant to be killed. We don't know what's causing that issue fully at the moment. We're working on it, but from my opinion, I think we're mostly done with death handling. It's just a matter of fixing that one last bug that's snuck its way into the code. So death mechanic mostly delivered. What's next? What's next? The hit bug. So the hit bug is a bug that has been around in CDMP for a very long time. It's the idea that when you take damage, there is a desync between the two Elsters, and the Elster begins to levitate. Originally it occurred when using the pistol. The more you use the pistol, the more you'd levitate. The pistol side of the bug is completely fixed. I think it was actually on last week's milestone marker, the pistol bug. That side's completely fixed. Taking damage is the part that's survived. It's mostly fixed. There are still a little bit of here and there problems with it that we have theories on how to fix, but it is mostly fixed and most likely will be completely fixed by next week. Finally, DET Bulls. So DET is the next room. I've been mistakenly calling it LOV. That's not true. The next room is actually DET. DET is detention. Detention is fairly long. That's going to be the entire section of the game that includes things like the radio. It's going to include things like showers, the bone key, the butterfly box. It's not super long, but it's fairly long. Most of the bulls of that section are in fact handled. There are 3 bulls at the tail end of it that are not fully handled at the moment, and those are still in testing. Outside of that being in testing, there's also the, as I've already mentioned, the death bug, the death handling bug, the hit bug, the last DT bulls, but also enemies sharing damage. There is code currently in the builds that enemies in theory should be sharing damage. It's just so buggy that I'm not going to say it's done. It's in testing, a little bit of tweaks, maybe give it a day or two, and that will be fully finished. So that's the progress. It's insane progress. We've gone from, week 1, we just had the Penrose working. The Penrose wasn't even fully working during week 1. There was some massive issues with bullying handlers. There was issues with crashing. That's done. We pushed completely through the Penrose, completely through Penhole. We pushed through the scene load bug. That's fixed. We pushed through DE. Now we pushed through all of Re-Edge, and now we're into DET. So what does the future look like for CGMP? I'm trying my best to deliver as much as I can here to give you guys some faith that I can pull this off. What's working? What's the work in progress? This is kind of the stuff that you might expect to see next week if everything stays the same. And that would be shared location of enemies and shared targeting of enemies. This would basically mean that the Yule you see on your screen is the same that your duo sees. Currently not the case, but I have a lot of ideas on how to do that, and that's a work in progress. Some parts of the code for that have been mostly built. Outside of that, what have I not started working on but is funded by current fundraising goals? And that is the €250 mark, and that's cutscenes for DET, and basically meaning the game is fully playable up to the end of DET. And I've done some previous approximations, it's about 1/3 of the game. That is funded and being worked on, and that can be expected in the next 2 weeks. So, we got to talk about fundraising. When we're talking about CDMP, it is something that is in a massive sink of time for me. I try to keep it as honest as I can with you all because I believe honesty is the way you do things like this. When you ask people for money, you should be very honest, and that's what these videos are for. That's why they're weekly, so I can sit down and be like, hi, you have trusted me with your money that you work hard for. Here's what I'm doing with it. Here's what I'm pulling off. So, full honesty. First things first, my original fundraising goals weren't fully palpable. They weren't fully possible. I was expecting originally to try and get 1/2 of the game done with the next fundraising goal. Simply put, I've looked into what that would mean. To give context here, I've spent maybe 20, 30 hours off of the first €100 of fundraising. So the first €100 of fundraising approximately about 30 hours of work. So the approximate amount I'm charging here is about €3 an hour. I think that's okay. I think that's a fair rate. The problem is, based off of that rate, it's just not palpable. It's not possible to finish the entire half of the game in a €500 span. It would make the hourly rate less than €1, and that would be insane. I mean, there's still all of Med to go. There's still all of Protector to go. There is still lots of things before we get to the halfway point of the game, or at least what I consider the halfway point. Due to that, I have to readjust these fundraising tiers. It's not possible. So the fundraising tiers have been readjusted. The other reason they've been readjusted is I am much more broke than I was when I started this. There have been some recent financial headaches in my regards that have made me far more impoverished to the point like this is currently my main source of income, whether I like that or not. I have to be honest, and it is. That's why I'm trying to be upfront and honest with you all. So I've changed the fundraising goals to make them both realistic and also to address the fact that without them being adjusted, I have to spend less time on CDMP because of other financial troubles I'm running into. And it just isn't fair to you guys to be like, okay, the current fundraising goals are fine, and then it takes me 9 weeks to achieve it, and that's just not fair to you. So, what are the new fundraising goals? Well, first, we have the one that's fully funded. I added a new fully funded tier in between €250 and €500. Originally, this one wasn't here, but I added it because I recognize that I'm changing the goalpost. It's only fair that I put something in there to be like, okay, guys, I recognize that. Here, take that. So we're fully funding the entirety of the bulls, enemies, and puzzles in medical. So that's a lot of work, but I think it's an okay compromise. I hope it's okay with the chat. I hope it's okay with you all that I'm putting in this fundraiser here, this marker. So that means that is currently fully funded. What is unfunded? Well, the €500 mark has been changed to the end of MED. This would be the Myaina fight. In some regards, this is actually the halfway point of the game. I think in terms of playtime it is. I personally consider the halfway point Corrupted Re-Edge, but Corrupted Re-Edge is not actually the halfway point of the game in terms of playtime. That's just personally what I consider the halfway point. So the Myaina boss fight, the cutscenes that are in medical, that is the new fundraiser goal. Getting us to that point in the game is the new goal. I will note here there is a marker on the bottom that is not on, it's not even on the tier because it is very far out. I'm setting this goal because I recognize my own needs as a human in terms of what I need in terms of income. If we manage to raise €900, this is a reach goal. This is an insane reach goal. I don't expect this from anyone. But if we manage to reach €900 before the 26th, I will work on CDMP full-time for a month. The reason for this is if we do this, that means that I will have fully funded my own rent. And that will mean that I don't need to work on other projects. Like right now, I'm working on many other projects to try and fund myself. If I don't need to work on other projects, I can do this full time. And if I can do this full time, I'm going to push it as far as I can in that first month. To give some hope and why that might be a good idea, you know, sitting down and you go, well, why do I exactly care if you're working on this full time? I currently spend about 9 to 10 hours on this a week. That would be increasing to 40. And if you look at my progress over the last 2 weeks, I hope it kind of says like, okay, this is what he's doing in 10 hours. What could he do with 4 times that time? What could he do with more? Because I do enjoy this project, so I might spend more time if allocated the funds. I'm not begging here saying you guys need to send this much, but if you do, I'm setting it as a reach goal. I'm setting it as if you guys can pull this off, I promise this is what I will pull off. I promise on my side, I will do everything in my power to reach our goals. But that is a very far off goal, and I recognize that. So that's all I really got for y'all today. I know me sitting here, once again asking for money, but I feel like with both the updates and keeping you guys in check on what's going on, and also keeping things honest, I feel like it is a fair balance. And hopefully you all agree. If you have any issues with how I'm fundraising, if you have any issues with the way I'm handling anything in this regard, you are always welcome to let me know, and I will try my best to adjust it to make it more fair for more people. My big thing is fairness and honesty. I believe that's just what you have to do when you do something like this. But I appreciate all of you a lot for what you've done so far, and I hope I'm doing my half of this bargain. Until next time, though, this has been Christopher Beast. It's been great, and I'll see you all, well, next time.